5D Mystery School.
Welcome back to 5D Mystery School. We're going to call this lecture, What's the Story? Part 1. So in 1958, the encyclopedia depicted Antarctica as having a 13,000 feet high dome, and it was later removed. Also in 1958, NASA was formed. Also in 58, the US launched its first satellite called the Explorer. Also in 1958, the US launched satellites to detect the Van Allen radiation belts around the Earth, and they determined that the Earth was not perfectly round. Now, this isn't what I believe, I'm just going by what they're telling us to believe. 1958 was a very interesting year, but fast forward to 9 years later, the US launches its first Apollo mission. Now, what's the story? Why were these missions named Apollo? Now we're going to get into some mythology that they use to coordinate events. Like and follow for more. Welcome back to 5D Mystery School. In this lecture, What's the Story? Part 2. So the purpose of this lecture is just to show you how the elites like to use mythology to plan out events. They also like to use the New Testament, but for the sake of this lecture, we're going to focus on the mythology aspect of it. So, this is Asclepius, the god of medicine. He was originally a mortal and later became the god of medicine. He was said to be the son of the god Apollo, an immortal woman named Coronis. I think it'd be safe to say that's what they named this virus after. Now, Coronis was trifling because she had an affair with a mortal man while she was pregnant. And so Apollo learned about this affair and he sent Artemis to kill Coronis. Artemis is also known as Sagittarius. So Artemis ended up burning Coronis, and Apollo felt bad because he had an unborn child in Coronis. So Apollo saved the child, and this was the first known cesarean section in history. So they say. Alright, so Apollo entrusted the baby to Chiron, who was a centaur, half man, half horse. Now Chiron was famous for his skills in medicine, and he then later brought up Asclepius to be his mentor. Now, Asclepius gained a reputation for performing miraculous cures, including reviving the dead. Now, this made Hades mad. Hades was the god of the underworld because he felt that Asclepius was disturbing the natural order of life. Hades felt that those dead souls belonged to him, and Zeus actually agreed with him. They felt people weren't supposed to cheat death and live forever. So Zeus decided to strike Asclepius down with a thunderbolt. Now, the punishment meant that a mortal man can only reach a certain limit in the natural order, and this is forbidden to exceed. Zeus also wanted others to know that it's a bridgeless chasm between mortals and gods. But Zeus was like, Asclepius did a good job, so let me make him a consolation. Now, Asclepius was the son of Apollo, and Apollo was the son of Zeus. Keep that in mind. Welcome back to 5D Mystery School. What's the Story? Part 4. I really want to get through this lecture because I'm excited for the next one. Now, in the other video, I mentioned that the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland is named after Atlas. Go watch that video if you haven't seen it. Now, Atlas had 3 brothers, Prometheus, Epimetheus, and Menoetius. Now, you might be familiar with Prometheus. Now, in case you weren't familiar, Prometheus is actually one of Saturn's moons. You see, everything eventually comes back to Saturn, aka Kronos. Keep that in mind. Now, there was a war between the Titans and their offsprings, the Olympians. Now, fighting against the Titans were the Olympians Zeus, Prometheus, and Hades. Side note, Olympus and Olympians are very important throughout our history. One example being the Olympics. Now, I'll give you an example of how they use mythology and media to plan out events. And I'll use Marvel Eternals as an example. So in this movie, the Eternals come from the planet Olympia. What's the Story? Part 5. So the Olympians won the war and then they punished the Titans. Now Atlas was condemned to stand at the western part of the earth and hold the sky on his shoulders. This is where the phrase, I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders, comes from. Now Atlas was said to be the commander in the army of Kronos during that war. Now many believe that he was actually condemned to hold up the weight of the heavens, not the earth. Another word for heavens is firmament. Now according to many myths, several stars in the night sky were children of Atlas, including Pleiades. His only son, Aias, was placed in the sky as the constellation Aquarius. Since we're now in the age of Aquarius, this whole CERN Atlas thing is about timing. Now, Atlas watched his sons and daughters move through the sky through thousands of years as he held up the dome of the Earth. He became so skilled at tracking stars, they named him the first astronomer, which is why a collection of maps is called an atlas. Atlantic Ocean translates to the Sea of Atlas, and Atlantis translates to the island of Atlas. Atlas was the son of Poseidon. What's the story? Part 6. Now, Greek sculptors often depicted Atlas's burden as a spear for both aesthetic and symbolic reasons. This was later confused and mistook for him holding a globe instead of the dome of the heavens, aka firmament. Now, one of Atlas's daughters, Maya, had a son named Hermes. Hermes was the brother of Apollo, the uncle of Asclepius, and the son of Zeus. It's all connected. Now, let's go back to the Marvel's Eternals. Now, if you've seen the movie, you know this is Icarus, and at the end, he flew into the sun. Now, as you can see in Greek mythology, there actually was an Icarus. Now, what I want to focus on here is that Icarus was instructed not to fly too close to the sun, and he actually did. Identical to the movie. Just for one more example, this is Athena in Marvel Eternals. Now, Athena is named after Athena, the Greek goddess of war, who was also an Olympian. So as you can see, most of our media today is influenced by Greek mythology. But that's not the only thing. What's the story? Part 7. So to summarize, Greek mythology is omnipresent in all aspects of our reality. I'm sure you've seen this symbol. This is a symbol of Hermes. And as you can see, the symbol of Asclepius is widely used in the medical field. Now remember, Asclepius was the son of Coronis. Now if you're asking yourself what the coronavirus has to do with the medical field, then you can trace it back to Greek mythology, with Asclepius being the son of Coronis. Here's just another example of how Greek mythology is omnipresent in our reality. Now, if you lived in New York for a long time like I have, then chances are you've seen this statue in New York City. Just another example of how Greek mythology is omnipresent everywhere. Now, it's very interesting that Atlas and CERN have the same location. Now, Atlas was condemned to hold up the firmament over the simulation. Now, we can take a logical and rational guess of what this Atlas is trying to do. You just have to pay attention to what's happening there. I mean, really pay attention. Welcome back to 5D Mystery School. What's the story? Part 8. So just a few more examples of how our reality is heavily influenced by Greek mythology. And the closing of this lecture. So this is the Greek island Delos. It is said to be the birthplace of the twins Apollo and Artemis. This is Delos, the company that owns Westworld and the show Westworld. And if you've seen that show, you know what it's about. It's definitely on like the Matrix type level. So as I mentioned before, this is Apollo, the god of arts, music, and healing. This is the Apollo Theater in Harlem on 125th Street. And as you can see, the interior looks like an old Colosseum that you would find in Greece or Rome. Now this is Kronos, and Kronos represents Saturn. Like I said in another video, Saturn is also known as the black cube for its north pole. And as you can see, the black cube worship is omnipresent. So in the next lecture, we'll be deciphering the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. Stay tuned.